Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Now, a Labour activist chosen to contest the Worcester seat at the next general election has been facing calls to stand down after it emerged she had made a string of controversial claims, including casting doubt on the evidence for the Manchester bombing and the murder of Labour MP Jo Cox. She's called Mandy Richards, and we can find out more from our political correspondent, Ross Hawkins. Ross, can you tell us, how did she become selected?
Well, she went along to the hustings and by all accounts, I've spoken to several people who were there, did pretty well. Apparently she was a very convincing candidate. What they weren't told about, and they are frankly mystified locally that they weren't told about this, is that she had a particularly interesting Twitter feed, a series of tweets that could certainly cause a lot of upset, and that she'd been involved in an election court case that had wound up in a high court case where she faced a series of civil restraint orders against her, and people there are just mystified that they weren't told. I've spoken to a couple of people who said they just assumed that when a candidate came before them they would have this sort of information, not least because she's been a candidate before, and genuine upset and insult on their part. I mean, one of those tweets, she sort of nodded to it, said of Jo Cox that the incident was conveniently bereft of evidence, referring there to the murder of a Labour colleague. Now, they had a vigil for Jo Cox on the night she was murdered there. They're pretty appalled. One councillor has told me on the record, others have hinted at this off the record, that they are writing to the local secretary. Some of them want a reselection, they want her to be thrown out, and frankly the idea of her remaining the candidate there right until the general election seems, well, very, very thin indeed.
Has there been a response from the Labour Party in terms of questions about the vetting procedure or what they are going to do now these things have come to light?
Well, my understanding is they regard it as a matter of urgency. Well, no surprise, you sort of would, wouldn't you? They're not getting into this in any detail on the record. Now, technically for the Labour Party, this isn't some complex story about rules and regulations and committees. The NEC, the National Executive Committee, has to sign her off in effect as a candidate. They could well put together a case that they weren't told by her about this and therefore that she shouldn't be a candidate. They just have to make a judgment about how they do it. She has defended herself, saying shame on those who call her a fantasist. But what's most remarkable about this is it really shouldn't have come as a surprise. In one of these hearings, reportedly, Diane Abbott was a witness who gave evidence. I've been told as a fact that at least one Labour official was in the room, and the real question that's likely to come out of this, if it is resolved, as frankly everyone I speak to thinks, with a different candidate in this winnable, rather marginal seat, will be how does Labour vet its candidates, if it vets its candidates at all, and should anything change?
Right, well, Ross Hawkins, keep us up to date with that story. Thank you.